Hello and welcome to another episode of That Sports Guys podcast. I am Craig Forrestall. I am That Sports Guy. Go ahead and find me on Twitter at that_sports_guy, where you can find all of my latest football takes. Also, NFLDraftDiamonds.com is proud to feature the That Sports Guy podcast on its website. Stop by NFLDraftDiamonds.com, your official draft coverage king. Hello and welcome to another player profile interview. Today we are lucky to have with us Armunz Mathews from Upper Iowa Safety. But before we get into it, I am Craig Forrestall. Go ahead and find me on Twitter at that_sports_guy, and we will go ahead and let our featured guest go ahead and say hello.
How y'all doing? Y'all can add me on Twitter at Armunz1.
Perfect. So everyone heard him there. Go ahead and find him at Armunz1. And like we said, he is a safety at Upper Iowa, but he finds his way to the campus of Upper Iowa from Tallahassee, Florida. So, Armunz, what's it like growing up in Tallahassee?
It was kind of tough because I was a Gator fan, but my father, he ran track at Florida A&M, so I was usually at the FAMU games and things like that until, when I got to high school, I started going to all the Florida State games because I was, invited and things like that. Other than that, I was really more of a FAMU fan living in Tallahassee instead of a Florida State fan.
Definitely. I can definitely see how that goes with the family ties. Like you said, your father running track there. And you mentioned that once you got into high school, you started going to some more FSU games. But fast forward to your junior, senior year of high school, you were a big-time high school recruit. So maybe if you could just take us through what that experience is like and having all those different coaches knocking at your door and trying to get your services.
To be honest, it's mind-blowing. Growing up, you watch, a lot of good players, you know what I'm saying? You see them get all the offers and things like that. In the back of your mind, you think, this could be me, but, you think more realistic, like, that's a lot. It's hard to do that. And when it actually happens, it's just mind-blowing.
Yeah, and I remember you saying to me earlier on when we were discussing some things that you actually played against some top-notch guys that are now in the NFL, like Jerry Jeudy and different things like that. So maybe if you could just take me through, like, what it's like seeing them, like you said, have their names called, seeing them go up on stage and be drafted and dominating on Saturdays and knowing that you have stood on the field with them, played at just as high of a level, if not higher, and just what that does for your confidence every time you step on the field.
Well, Judy's a good player, but I don't think he was the best player I went up against. My freshman year, I played against Derrick Henry in the playoffs, and it was probably the most frightening thing that I ever witnessed in my life because, when he got off the bus, you thinking, oh, this the tight end. Like, this can't be the running back. And then you get on the field with him, and he running full speed at you. It's just like, wow. And then, from 10th grade to 12th grade, to 11th grade, I played against Ronnie Harrison in high school, the safety for the Jaguars. So, for me, individually, I did great. But as a team, he tore us apart.
And that's the catch-22. Sometimes when you have those great individual performances, the team doesn't always follow suit with you. So how do you handle those types of moments when you perform at a high level, but it ends up being a loss?
For me, it's more of a, you talk to the guys like if, my dad taught me growing up, if one man can do it, somebody else can. And that's really, what I tell them. Like, if I can do it, if I can play at a high level against these guys, you can do it too. And, Ronnie, he was actually, I actually grew up with him. Like, he's actually one of my best friends. And it's just like going against him, he brought out the better in me.
And talking about that friendship of how he's one of your best friends growing up together, when you see him now, like you said, playing with the Jaguars, does it kind of just put a picture in your head of what you hope the future will be like? And would you ever want to play with him, or would you rather be against him? That way you could always kind of have it out there like, it's a one-on-one competition and always competing.
For me, I'd rather play against them. You know, it's fun to play with friends, but it's better to play against. The build up. You live for the build up, and yeah, it's your friend, but you don't want your friend to outdo you. You're happy with his success, but you wouldn't want him to outplay you. So I'd rather play against him than with him.
And then with that, like you said, playing a couple of different places, whether it's with him or against him, you've played against a couple of other really good guys in college. You've spent some time with the program at South Florida right out of high school. And if you could just maybe talk about what it's like that first time you walk into a packed D1 stadium as a freshman, just what's going through your mind, the emotions, and is it that realization of, man, all my hard work as a kid finally paid off?
To be honest, it's more of my hard work finally paid off, and it's a feeling like I made my parents proud. I know they're happy to see me in this situation. And then, as far as walking into the locker room and practices and things like that, practices were fun. Going against guys like Marlon Mack and Quentin Flowers and Marquez Valdez-Scantling, the receiver for the Packers, and Rodney Adams, Tyree McCants, guys like that. I mean, it gets you better.
And like you said, it was a stacked team at South Florida when you were there, going off of the players that were there offensively. What does that do for you now as you're going into your final season in college?
It's just confidence.
And with that confidence, all that growth that you've experienced from day one to where you are now, what would you say is the biggest part of your game that has developed?
To be honest, it's just my mental preparation. Because physically I could always match up with those guys, but mentally I wasn't there yet. I could win the rep, jam them up, be in the right position, but they were mentally smarter than me, so they always found a way to catch the ball at the end, or break it off a little early when I was over the top of the route. Or with Marlon Mack, he was probably the smartest football player I ever played with. Because he could see the hole break down before he actually hit it. So he knew exactly where to go.
And now when you've seen players like that and they've played at such a high level where they know where to go before the play is going to happen, how does that help you with your play recognition skills?
To be honest, watching these guys and learning from these guys, even though they're on the other side of the ball, you see what the elite players thinking. Because Mac is doing this in the NFL, but, he started it in college. So now I see how NFL player thinks.
And
on my visits, when I used to go and hang out with Ronnie and things like that, I used to hang out with Marlon Humphrey and guys like that. Marlon Humphrey, Tony Brown, Minkah Fitzpatrick. It's just learning how to, break down what's going to happen before it happens by looking at the formation or looking at tendencies or looking at the quarterback signals. Just the little things.
And one thing that isn't so little is your actual training routine. I saw a video the other day where you were using a speed and agility ladder and you were getting in some work in the sand. Maybe if you could just take us through your training routine and what that work on the speed ladder does for you.
Well, being from Florida, we're mostly speed and quickness, quick feet. And my training came from my dad. It's a mixture of people. My dad, my two older brothers. I have two trainers, and I have a mentor. I have a trainer named Harrison Smith. I have a trainer named Mark Lyles, and my mentor is Corey Fuller. And they put everything together for me, and I just go out and do it.
And what would you say has been the most difficult part with that training routine? Like you said, you have a lot of different guys helping you get there. what would you say has been the most difficult part of your training routine?
The most difficult part is, again, I'll touch on mental toughness because with Coach Fuller, that's all he builds. His workouts aren't to, they aren't for speed or muscle or things like that. It's for mental toughness. Like, we did suicides on the football field one day, the whole workout.
Oh, wow.
Like, it's not a lot of work. It's just building your mental toughness. If you stop, that make you mentally weak. But you gotta. He's teaching me to push on.
And with that pushing on, what are you pushing on for this season? Not only individually, but then as a team.
The D2 National Championship. That's exactly what I'm pushing for. Like my coaches, they talked a lot about it. We got a new head coach, and me and him we're really tight because he was my position coach last year. But the D2 National Championship is exactly what I'm pushing for.
And with that Division II National Championship, when you start thinking about holding that trophy your senior year, what does it mean to you? What would a national championship mean as the final moment of your college career?
It would mean a lot. And I say that because, all throughout high school, I'd always get to the second or the third round of the playoffs and lose. When I got to college, when I went to South Florida, my first year we went 11-2. We won our bowl game. Being a national champion would be something totally different. It'll be a totally different feeling.
And you play in one of the better conferences in Division II football in the Northern Sun Conference. For some of our listeners that may not be familiar with Division II football or specifically your conference, what can you tell us about the talent level and how it would measure up with some of the guys you face in your D1 experiences?
To be honest, like I tell a lot of people, the only difference between the D1 players, the D1 programs that I've witnessed and the D2 programs is the drop-off in the second half talent. First teamers, they can play in the bigger conferences and divisions and things like that. But it's just a drop-off with the second and the third string and things like that. At Alabama, they got a bunch of 5-stars, first, second, and third team. And it's just like the drop-off. That's really the only thing.
And now, when you talk about that drop-off, what is it something that you do as a leader to try and help those other guys on the second and third team get better from your experiences?
To be honest, you can only tell them so much. They just gotta be willing to learn it themselves, And with that is more of a want to, like I said. I can tell them what I see on the field, but until they get out there and do it themselves, they'll never understand. I can tell them to come watch film with me, but if they don't come, there's nothing I can do about it. I can't make them.
And now we said that a Division II championship would mean a lot to you from a team perspective, but from an individual side, would being an All-American mean the most to you, or would there be any type of individual award that you're really hoping that you can play for this year as a senior?
To me, the thing I want the most, I'd say, is to get 100 tackles.
And now, for our listeners that may not be familiar with you and your game in the defensive backfield, why don't you talk to them a little bit about your approach? Because you do bring the heat. You are a big-time hitter. So that 100 tackles may not be completely out of sight, out of range. So maybe talk a little bit about your game. Give us a scouting report.
For me, I've always been a finesse type player, you know what I'm saying? Because throughout most of my career, I only played corner. When I got to South Florida, I played corner. When I was in high school, I played corner. Guarding the better receivers in the South, I was only taught finesse. Got to be able to move, got to be able to do this and that. But, getting here to upper hour and making the change of safety is just really, I look at it like, Armunz Mathews. When he was at LSU, he played nickel and things like that. In the NFL, he's playing safety. You gotta be able to evolve your game. That's really it.
And talking about evolving your game, the one thing that I would really want you to give to our listeners, especially our younger listeners, if you could go back in time and if you could do one thing to make yourself a better player at an earlier age, what would that be?
To be honest, I say nothing, and I say that because with everything that's happened to me in my career, I'm happy it happened because it made me a better person first and a better player second.
Definitely. And we've talked a good amount about football, but now I want to give the people a chance to get to know you a little bit off the field. So if you'll be a good sport, what's the song that you're most embarrassed to admit that you like?
The song, to be honest, it's a church song because my father, he runs. My father's my pastor,
Mm-hmm.
and my mother's my assistant pastor. And my father, he runs around the house singing a church song. Is "You Fight On," and it's not. I'm not embarrassed to say I know it. It's just. It's funny because me and my girlfriend was just listening to it.
Literally, you guys were just listening to it right before we hopped on.
Just listening to it. Yeah.
Oh man, look at that. That's timing right there. Now,
Yeah.
So now, what would be the dream car?
Dream car?
Mm-hmm.
A Challenger. Yes, sir. Dodge Challenger.
Any reason why the Dodge Challenger out of all the cars?
To be honest, I have a Chevy Camaro right now. But I just always wanted the Dodge Challenger.
You can't fight what the heart wants.
I can't at all.
Now, if I wanted to get something to eat up around campus at Upper Iowa, what's the best restaurant?
The best restaurant in Fayette, I'd say is DT's. But going outside of the city, it's a place called Tim and Jim's in West Union, Iowa. It's amazing.
Really? Tim and Jim's? Yes. What do I need to order when I go to Tim and Jim's?
I get a chicken BLT with a side of cheese curds.
Oh, wow. That sounds amazing. What's been the most memorable or interesting class you've taken in college?
Interesting class. I have to say, intellectual communication. No, I take that back. Public speaking my freshman year at South Florida.
What was it about public speaking?
It's just my professor. He was great.
And now, if you won $1 million and you could only donate it to one charity or one cause, what would it be?
One charity or one cause. It would have to be to be honest, it would have to be the Black Lives Matter cause because of everything that's going on right now. It's just a tough time, for everybody, not just African Americans. It's a tough time for everybody. And it's just, we all just, I really don't know how to put it. I just feel like that's what I do with it.
Absolutely. And like you said, it's a very tough time in America right now. And what we need to do is we need to start coming together in a name of love. There's been so much hate that's been going on amongst us that's divided us to such an ugly, ugly place that we need to come together out of a place of love. And with you saying that donating to the Black Lives Matter movement and Black Lives Matter cause, I 100% agree that would be money well served towards a cause that's much needed right now in this country, and definitely for future generations as well. That way they don't have to go through the ugliness that we're experiencing right now. So I couldn't have said it any better myself. But that is just about it. But before we get out of here, Armunz, I want to give you one last chance to let everybody know what should we expect from Upper Iowa this year.
You should expect the B2 National Championship. That's definitely going to happen. I will not leave college without it. I will not.
There you go. You heard it first right here. Upper Iowa D2 National Championship. For Armunz Mathews, I am Craig Forrestall. Until next time, we are out. Stay safe and be easy.
Yes, sir.
Hey everybody, Craig Forstall. Thanks for tuning in and listening to another episode of That Sports Guys podcast. Make sure to follow me on Twitter at @that_sports_guy to catch all the latest updates and podcast episodes. Until next time, stay safe and be easy.